I'm pleased to introduce Ali Zaidi, who's the National Climate Advisor, Special Advisor to the President, and co-chair of our Energy Communities IWG. Ali Zaidi is, since joining the White House, has been a staunch advocate for not just the work of the IWG, but for not leaving communities behind while we're tackling the climate crisis. And so it is my absolute great pleasure to welcome Ali to the stage this morning, and let's please give him a warm welcome.
It's just fantastic to be here with all of you, and love walking into a room where people are thinking about how we keep swinging for the fences and do more. That's exactly, I think, where we need to be. You know, in the time since we launched the Interagency Working Group, and this was part of the campaign platform for the president, then we drafted it into the Day One executive order. There was a conversation about whether this should have its own executive order or it should be part of the climate executive order, and I felt very strongly that you shouldn't and couldn't have a conversation about climate without weaving into its DNA the communities that had carried us on their backs for decades. I remember the first time we got together in the Oval, President getting ready to go out and sign this Day One executive order, and the remarks had been drafted, we're going through them, and the thing he added right before he went out was something he felt was so important to really underscore. And that was this concept of creating economic opportunity in the literal zip code where economic opportunity had left. And I think that's, now we're sitting here hundreds of folks strong with the benefit of 3.5 years of hindsight in this particular journey, for others a journey of decades. But that idea, I think, is actually a pretty radical idea in American public policy. For a long time, the answer has been, well, there's opportunity if you take a bus ride. There's an opportunity in the state next door. There's an opportunity if you leave your rural community and take on a completely different cultural existence in the city that's nearby. This work is dedicated not just to the proposition of an economic agenda, but I think an agenda of returning a sense of purpose and place and dignity and respect. And that's something that's really been core to the president's work in this space. Today, we stand here having mobilized $20 billion of public investment into energy communities as a result of Brian's work, of Briggs' work, the work of this interagency working group. The first installment of that was just a couple $1 million of AML money that we scraped together in early 2021. And that was the basis for going to Congress and working on a bipartisan basis, saying, hey, this is, and I remember, Power Plus and Ambler, some of the stuff we worked on at the back end of the Obama years, those were the sort of $1 million examples that we were able then to scale into a $20 billion reality. The Inflation Reduction Act, I think, really took that concept of zip code specific opportunity to heart and took that DNA and grafted it into the unlikeliest and perhaps most inhospitable of places, the US tax code. And I say this close enough to the Treasury building that Janet Yellen could probably send someone with handcuffs to lock me away. But they've been it's been such a runaway success. 150% growth in energy communities of the investment. When you look at the light up map of where the tax credits are going, it is exactly the places we were purposeful about lifting up as places of opportunity. There's entire firms on Wall Street now that have made it their investment thesis, maybe some of them are in this room, to invest in these places. And what's so great is that comes with not just a nudge, but a real shove in the rib to deliver in a way that delivers apprenticeships, 10% of the labor hours coming from apprenticeships, in a way that delivers a prevailing wage. We're not about skimming. I think Amanda was talking about the assets that are in these communities. This isn't the moment to go and skim those assets in the communities, talent being the number one, but to actually invest in those assets. And the way you do that is by paying wages that people deserve and that will help not just put steel in the ground, but actually steel in the spine of the American middle class. And one of the tax credits, and I just love the 48C because it's actually not a new idea. I remember the vice president at the time, who was overseeing the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, his favorite tax credit was 48C. His least favorite thing was calling it 48C. And I got my, I remember in the VP's residence getting a lot of flack for referring to something in the tax code by its numbers. But today, thanks to him, thanks to Joe Manchin, Debbie Stabenow, others who helped scale that up in the Inflation Reduction Act, we're seeing 48C deliver opportunity in so many places. I was just in York, Pennsylvania, where there's been a machinists organized facility, 150 years. They've tripled their book of business, and it's because they've been able to buy the machinery that makes them competitive in this global race for clean energy. And you go to a place like Highland Materials that's getting hundreds of millions of dollars in support, including through 48C, and lifting up opportunity in Tennessee. That's a really, really, really big deal. You heard at the panel just before I got here I think, excitement about leveraging these tax credits and what I think of as public equity in the capital stack. How do we leverage that public equity in the capital stack? Well, in certain cases, it's publicly established or backstopped or underwritten debt facilities. And the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and in particular, our incredible partnership with Appalachian Community Capital as part of GGRF, I think has such incredible potential. And, you know, the crew, and you probably heard this in the panel, has estimated that they can finance $2.25 billion worth of projects. 2,750 is what they're aiming at. But here's my, big sort of dream behind that is, how do we use that as the watershed moment for then a bunch of other capital to say, hey, this is an asset class we're a lot more comfortable with than we thought. That's always been the theory of government debt, in the same way that we financed the first few utility scale solar plants in 2009, 2010. The same way, by the way, the federal government financed Tesla's first factory. We can help create asset classes that then commercial paper can come in and help scale up. And that's why Brian and I and others helped convene actually at the New York Federal Reserve just this spring, a group of financial institutions to encourage them to, at the very least, open their eyes and look at what we're doing to see what they could learn and help us reach the maximum potential. The last thing I'll say, and would love to take some questions from the group here, is, we have known for a really long time that the technical assistance part of this is so important. And it's not technical assistance for Washington to determine what the roadmap should be. It's not technical assistance for Washington to do the landscape analysis. It's technical assistance, someone shoulder to shoulder with the communities, for the communities to take into their hands the way they will move forward. We're so grateful for the chance to be partnering not just with the Department of Energy and the Department of the Interior and the Appalachian Regional Commission, but with a relatively new partner, but in some ways the most likely one, the AmeriCorps team, to launch a new vertical for a American Climate Corps Energy Communities edition, to deploy young people into communities to be your sort of arms and legs as you run around and help animate that exercise of envisioning how we leverage the physical, the spiritual, the talent assets in communities across America to help us reach the next level. You know, it's, I often say that when we're talking about climate change, the most important conversation to have is a conversation about power. And, you know, when I say that, people think I'm talking, as one might as a climate advisor of the president, about electricity, electrifying cars, electrifying transportation, electrifying industry, delivering clean energy to the grid, upgrading the thousands of miles of poles and wires. But what I'm talking about is who gets to decide what this next economy looks like? Who benefits? Who owns the substations and the transformers? Who owns the roadmap for the success that we will have as the United States of America? Who are the workers who will suit up? Will they take away a decent wage? Will they take away an equity stake in what's going on? It's a question about power. And so as I think about the climate crisis, I think about it as the greatest opportunity, not just to grow the economy, not just to lead the world, but to return power to all Americans to feel like they are in the driver's seat, not just for their own destiny, but the driver's seat to lead this country in the direction we will all imagine together. This interagency working group, those American Climate Corps members, young people showing up to your communities, those workers who felt on the outside of opportunity being expanded in the United States, they are the target audience. They will be the leaders, and they will help us answer the question in the way the president has tried with his darndest to get us to answer the question, which is we are all going to be empowered in this journey, and it's on all of us to make sure that that vision comes to bear. The work is far from done. $20 billion doesn't begin to tap into the opportunity, but it's a damn good launch pad to get the job going. So thank you so much, and in particular, thank you to Brian.
I think we have you for a couple more minutes.
We'll let him finish.
Because there are so many burning questions I would like to talk to you about. And let's start with, well, and thank you for using empowering, by the way, because it really is, how can we make sure we can engage the energy communities of yesterday in part of the energy transition? That's what we're trying to do. That's the, I was going to grab one. How, 48C is a great lever for that, and it really is one of my favorite parts of the tax code as well. What are some of the other ways that you think, just tapping into your mind, that we can make sure that as we are tackling the climate crisis with that great opportunity that's in front of us with lots of investment, how can we take additional steps to make sure that those investments can go into energy communities?
So it sounds like folks were having this conversation a little bit before I got here, and one of my experiences from state government and actually from the private sector investing into energy assets in particular is this conversation around liability and the conversation around readiness. When we think about foreign direct investment into the United States, which is through the roof, as well as the investment into the clean energy sector, when you go around, you talk to folks, site selection is a hard thing. And in fact, finding good places with good infrastructure and good power plug-in capability is hard. And then when you find it, you're not sure all the former owners, where they are, especially in some of the places we're talking about. Lots of companies that have come and gone, and hard to chase them down. I think there's a role here for us to play where we're leveraging the brownfields dollars at EPA, but we're also bringing state governments into the conversation to make these places ready for investment. I think that's one of the most important, most valuable things we can do over the next 18 months is sprint like heck to identify these places, to make them ready, to have some sort of a liability collar around them, which is not to say fence line communities are holding the bag. No, somebody responsible has to be in the game, but we've got to de-risk them. And I think there's a lot of fundamentals from the tax code and from the just simple reality of limited interconnection capacity that will drive people to these places. But if we make it easier and we remove some of that friction, I think that's a really big, helpful and big deal.
That's great. And so I think one of the panels we're going to have this afternoon, we're going to have some discussions around policy, and all of the theme of what we're trying to get here today and yesterday is that it's a long game. We're not done. There's still some things left on the table, and I think that we're identifying one of the big ones here in what you just mentioned. I'm also really excited about the American Climate Corps and the AmeriCorps investment, and I have to give a personal thanks to Ali and the whole Climate Policy Office for really pushing the envelope on having the energy communities as part of this. And it goes back to the original executive order, the commitment to not leave communities behind, to have it as part of the climate executive order. And could you take a little bit more time around that opportunity of putting AmeriCorps Vistas in communities, and as you're hearing as you came in, giving some capacity to dream. And so ultimately, we want to keep growing that program, but coupling the energy communities, AmeriCorps Vistas, with the Climate Corps Vistas as well. What do you see that dream can look like for having the capacity in communities, and then the opportunity for Vistas following that?
Well, let me start with the second part first, which is, one of the most exciting partnerships we have with the American Climate Corps is with the North American Building Trades. And what we've actually set up the Climate Corps to do is, on a parallel track as you're moving along your year of service, you're actually getting some of the skills from the NAB2 folks that you would have gotten in a pre-apprenticeship trajectory, so that you can ramp into an apprenticeship and then hopefully into a union career if that's the path you choose for yourself. I think it's really important that we're setting folks up not just for a one-year drive-by, but really to fall in love with and stay in a job that they can use to support a career and families, and stay in the places they are investing this year of service. So that's thing number one. I think thing number two is, what does it look like for the Climate Corps members to be successful on the ground? I think not everyone's got their Brian Anderson, right? Not everyone's got an interagency working group. And maybe they're the beneficiaries of a rapid response team or concerted federal effort, but anything we're doing from the federal side in is just of a different character and feel than folks are doing from the bottom up. So in an ideal world, this is maybe not the leader, but the engine, if we still have those, is the engine to help really, I think, have the capability to convene the version of an interagency working group at that level. And obviously the interagency there is, maybe it's the American Legion and the Kiwanis, maybe it's the local IBEW or the Steelworkers, maybe it's the local Sierra Club. Whoever it is, we got to get those folks together, the chamber together, so that people are thinking through, hey, what's my roadmap here? Not what did AI spit out for me as the most likely path for economic success. And I think that's a really important thing, because there are a lot of people in Washington who have really great designs for what to do in rural America, what to do in energy communities. And honestly, when I go talk to folks, those things don't necessarily match up. So this is about really following through on the empowering piece.
Ali, I love it, and I can imagine a scenario in which we're sending the AmeriCorps Vistas into energy communities, they fall in love with the communities, and then they start building the small businesses, that's everything from energy efficiency to small manufacturing. I think I'm just really excited about it. So Ali, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and honestly for your, like I said, staunch support over the years in this interagency working group, and your vision for where we're going in the future. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. And one just open item that I'll say, and we got Ben Beachy from my team here who leads the energy communities work at the Climate Policy Office. If any of you see opportunity and we can bring people together at the White House, call us, we will bring that team together. We have the time for that. If you need us to show up to your community, to drag an investor there to do some show and tell, we will do that. Brian is full service, but we try to be at least half service. And please lean on us, because we're in this as a team and together. So thank you so much.